absolutely. I say it every single time that I have that video that goes through. Joel Felsenstein, you are the man. I am so blessed to have you in my life, my friend. I'm looking forward to you being part of our Cooking Up Change event, our second annual Cooking Up Change event in March of 2026, and having you actually perform at the event. You are super talented, my friend, and I am just really blessed to know you. Thank you for that intro video. Before I get to our guest, I want to let's call out our sponsors, and we have Elevated Coaching and Consulting Global, Guiding Brilliant Writers Publishing, Talented Podcast or Talentless Podcast, In Workplace Abuse, Sepher, HR Consultations, Workplace Fairness, Uniqua, New Beauty Norm by Jen Lin, and ourmerchpage.com. A huge group, 9 sponsors, and we are blessed to have all of them, but we're even more blessed to have this group here tonight and the topic that we are going to talk about. I want to make a big shout out. We just released our t-shirts for our upcoming event that has Claudia Marulunda's artwork that she did for us in this past March for our first Cooking Up Change event that led to me going and spending 21 days in Nicaragua and building out the very first transformation kitchen with Rayo de Sol. And it was a phenomenal experience that I will never forget. And Claudia had done this incredible piece that really speaks to me. And we put it on the front of the t-shirts, and on the back, all of the sponsors that you heard are on the back of the shirt. And you can now purchase that. And I'm just so stoked. She's such a talented lady. And I'm thrilled to have her in my network. Today, we are talking about leadership burnout and the effects that it has on us. It's been a heavy week. We're going to talk a lot about what's been going on, what's been happening, and what's been going on with each other. Tiffany Castagno is in the house. She is the CEO and founder of Sepher, Cultivating the Evolution of Professional HR. Desiree Goldey, the Director of Marketing, Embedded Recruiting, and Interim Solutions. She's also the co-host of the Talentless podcast with Ashley King. Dr. Anne-Marie Ristow, the founder of C, Systematic Equity Edits, and Kylie van Luyn, the founder and CEO of Elevated Coaching and Consulting Global. She's also the board president for HR for You Incorporated. So thank you, ladies, for being here in the house today. Big warm of applause. And a huge cheer, because those of you that are in the audience, you may know this, you may not know this. This is our 1-year anniversary of doing our quarterly event. I just love being a kid that can press the buttons on the soundboard. It's just like, so congratulations to us. It's May of last year, we started leading from the front. This conversation about gathering these 4 ladies and allowing this monkey with a mic to record it and just talk about all different types of conversation, all different types of topics that really affect us in HR, the talent world, and in leadership in general. And tonight, man, with everything that's been happening in the world and what's been going on for months now, it is an incredible topic to start with. And I'm going to tell this story first. I see comments already flowing in. What spawned this for me, and this, I feel like this is kind of funny because 2 of our 5 leading from the front conversations have been spawned by a post from Desiree Goldey. And Desiree put out this incredibly impactful post with the graphic of the leader and people just gnawing on either side and talking about some stats and then the effects that she's seeing. It was really impactful. And we have a little LinkedIn chat group, and I'm putting in there, man, I think it's time for us to talk about some of these things. And Tiffany jumps in, and then the rest of us jump in, and it was like, okay, let's go. Let's do this. So here we are. So I'm going to start with Desiree because she did the post. This is what spawned the conversation. So I'm going to start out with Desiree and just, you know what? I think we're going to go round robin, and you guys pop in when you're feeling like you need. I got to say something, but let's talk about what spawned this conversation and what spawned your post,
Yeah.
Desiree.
Yeah. First of all, Jason, thank you so much. I mean, I always enjoy these conversations. And Kylie, Tiffany, I mean, me, fangirling all the time. For me, I write posts to make sure there is something somebody's sitting and thinking about for a second and saying, like, hey, maybe I didn't think about that moment. And this was one of those where I didn't necessarily feel burnout at that time. It's a funny story. I was talking to a client of mine who felt that way and felt oppressed by what was happening in the world, and also felt oppressed by all the tasks, right? Like, we ask leaders to do a lot of things. We ask them to manage their direct reports, reviews. We ask them to do I think Tiffany wrote about it today, where she wrote this like a laundry list of things, and that's just the smallest thing, right? We're asking for all these things, and then we're also asking for KPIs, metrics, all of that. My biggest thing is, how do you identify burnout in yourself? Because I believe there is some like self-care that needs to happen here. And how do you push boundaries against the company that says we just need more, right? Because they're going to continue to say we need more. uh, and so, how do you find the no, if that makes sense? I don't know. I've learned the no over time, but it's a hard thing to do. And as leaders, we feel responsible for all of those people. So we're like, we can't have the no. We can't have that moment. And so, how do we find the no? And how do we say to corporate or whoever that there is a no point? And I think this is super important as we talk about this conversation and talk about how we find how to be a better leader. Is some of that. It's some of the pushback. It's some of those conversations. It's communication, transparency. It's all of those things that I don't think, and it's why I wrote the post, we're doing in most of these organizations. We're just not doing it. We're not saying the right things. We're not telling people to be allowed to have these conversations. We're saying, okay, no, don't do any of that. Don't do any of that, because then they won't be profitable. But guess what happens at the other end of that? Then we lose the revenue. We lose that person. We have no retention. We have no, like, it's just and I still think, and we've had these conversations for a year now, which I'm super excited, but I still think leaders don't connect the dots between now and a year in retention and attrition and all the things that happen. I still think they're not connecting the dots. This is one of those conversations. Oh, well, that was a long thing, so I'm going to stop.
Jump in, ladies. This is all about you, so jump in.
Well, so I actually, I'm always looking for the research. And I went through the list of drivers of burnout, right? And when you're passionate about your work and you get energy from your work, it's hard, I'm going through the list and it's like unmanageable workload. Oh no, not really, because I love it. Like I thrive on that. And then you go through the lack of the right tools or resources. No, I feel like I'm equipped, or if not, like I find those resources. And the poor leadership. No, I've got an incredible leader. And then you get to it's not a people staff shortage. The blurred work-life balance. Oh, okay. Like, let me back up there. It's that fine line that you have to. So I love how you said, how do you find the no? Because, and I think I've said it before, just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? Just because you're able doesn't mean you're the one. And so it's like great that you can get energy from the quantity of work and the quality of work that you're doing, but you also need to make sure you put that no in place, because then you're just like, it creeps up for me anyways, it creeps up. And it like gnaws at you over time. And then, like before I came on, I was like, why did you guys pick this topic for tonight? Like I was completely not a part of it, all of a sudden, because now I'm living it, like, so I love that you said, like, how do you find your no? And how do you know that your value isn't decreased by that, right?
Yeah.
That's really important.
So I have a word of the week, and I let everybody talk. I have a word of the week every week. I know I'm kind of a nerd, but this week was psychosomatic, right? And so for me, sometimes some of this is self-imposed and psychosomatic. It's like, I feel this pressure. Well, what is that actually coming from? If it's real, let's address it. If it's not, let's address you. Right. And figuring out where that pressure is coming from internally, and then address that. And my therapist and coach all say that I should address those consistently. but that would be like kind of like address the no and then get to the bottom line of the no's. But I would love to hear Tiffany and Kylie's kind of thing on this, because they work in this every day. So I would love to hear your thoughts.
Well, a lot of what we're talking about. Sorry, Tiffany, did you want to go?
No. Yeah, I know. I'm really curious for your angle because of the work you do. So I'll gladly follow. I know that we're all aligned here. Thank you.
I was just going to say that sometimes people don't know, unless you do this work and you work in this field, that burnout is the result of what we call psychosocial hazards in the workplace, right? Which are those subtle things, those nuances, those things that, like Anne was saying, Dr. Anne was saying, the excessive workload, or the blurred lines between, and I hate that terminology, work-life balance, because there is never, you can't balance anything. If you think of a seesaw, there's always something that's up and something that's down, right? Unless you get the perfect measures in place. But what we're talking about here is I think, lack of management when it comes to psychosocial hazards in the workplace. And so some of that can be related to psychological safety and the psychological harm and injury and abuse that people suffer. And quite often when we're talking about burnout, I rarely see people in my line of work that have experienced burnout that don't also then develop either mental health or physical health problems as a result, whether it's autoimmune disorders or certainly anxiety and depression, those types of things. But I think that burnout is the outcome, is the result of those things not being either identified and addressed or managed properly in a workplace. And leaders are expected. I know when I experienced burnout in my previous role before starting my company, leaders very, very much expected still to, have it all together. And that silence from leaders that, us as leaders, we don't want to talk about it, because those of us that are purpose-driven and people leaders, we really are trying to protect our teams from some of the things that we're experiencing, right? And so we're taking the brunt of the pressure and whatever else is thrown at us. But that silence from leaders is really the thing that fuels this epidemic that we're now seeing, and the mental health challenges that are stemming from it. So I really think that it starts with the psychosocial hazards and all leaders being aware of that, because from that awareness, we'll be able to establish those boundaries and encourage people to say no and say, look, this is too much for me, and it's also too much for my team. Because often when, the leader is experiencing burnout or getting very close to experiencing burnout, their teams are also experiencing it, because there's that overflow effect. And so there's just, I guess, a couple of my thoughts around it is just building that awareness about what psychosocial hazards are. And if you have one or more on that list that you're ticking off saying, well, yes, that happens here, yes, that's happening, you're in the danger zone, folks.
Yeah. Whoop.
And I think
the danger
I
zone.
think it
I feel
got
like you
hotter
should
over
play
here.
Top Gun music or something right now.
Listen,
right? We should totally play that right now. I don't know. That was tough.
Yeah,
I felt it in my core. So yes, thank you so much for that.
It's so true. And this is why I talk about, from the individual, I believe we all have to be self-led first, but when we look at the individual level and leadership, this is why engagement scores, right? Like if you have a leader who is not engaged, who isn't bought into the mission, vision, values, who themselves is fried like a piece of bacon, it's not going to work, right? Though everything has a trickle down effect. And if we're not as organizations pouring into these leaders, it will all have an effect. But it's why I say permission to live out loud, right? Like as an individual, as leadership, as a team, an organization. And the number of times I have people, it happened this week. I have people crying in my office, strong leaders, very strong leaders who are talented. But and I had this conversation the other day about high performers, and I'm one of them. I think everybody, maybe all of us on this call are, right? But thank you, Jody. Oh, Jody. Now I'm sidetracked by Jody's hugs because they're the best. Thinking of what we need as individuals, but it's so hard sometimes for people to say no, especially if they're a high achiever, especially when we have things in the workplace like bias. And in this current environment of a lot of things, right? But the talent market and how hard it is and how people feel this pressure of, we have return to office, we have, folks losing their jobs, and I have to do everything I can to protect it. And also systems teach people to protect it. It teaches people to climb all over each other and to stumble over, because God forbid that growth is only vertical, right? We're not giving people the tools, and we're asking for more and more, but we're not pausing long enough. Every single week I'm looking at, I've watched my pace pick back up. I've been through burnout 4 times at least. That's probably not even counting corporate, because I didn't even know I was there, right? It's chronic stress over time. And we look at that and we normalize it, just like we do with certain things around mental health. And we have to understand that some of these things are not normal and they should not be normalized. Working at a pace that we were never meant to work at is only going to burn people out. But what are the tools and systems? And can we ask a question? Can we check on the person versus, and we've talked about that a lot in this space, checking on the person versus what needs to happen and the productivity. Don't even get me started down the rabbit hole of HR and how we don't have the tools and the budget. How I told somebody the other day, my budget got taken away from my HR generalist, and it's like, you'll figure it out. And I'm like, okay. Fast forward months later, I was in burnout. I didn't know that at the time, but I started seeing a counselor again after many years. We don't equip people with the tools because we don't take a pause long enough. We push people back to the office despite their lives and what they need and as an individual and the family, let alone all the things that make them uniquely them and their families. And it's an epidemic. It's something that we really need to figure out. And I hope that, we're providing some practical tools here today.
And we're doing those things for no reason. Like, we're saying to people that they have to go back to the office. And our reasoning is pretty much almost like when you were kids and it's your parents used to say, because I said so. And
Yeah,
that's, I mean, I'm just like,
totally
okay,
that,
that's
right?
exactly like I'm
That
going,
part.
yeah, that didn't work out well for me as a kid. As I got older, I'm thinking that's not working real well in the leadership role. Because I said so is not a great answer. Um, you know, we are talking about leaders, and we're talking about all the different things. And Anne pointed out, there's you can find on social media, you can find, if you know, good grief, you go to AI and list all the different things that cause burnout. It only takes one.
Mhm.
It
Oh,
literally could just be a single thing.
Yeah.
I had this I had this buddy that was a special operator. I mean, you want to talk about people living on the edge of, you know, burnout constantly, because there's no gray area for, oh, you can't be on. Like, you're a special operator. You went through all this stuff, and you're going out here and protecting our country, and you're on. When we need you, no matter what time, no matter what, you're on. And I think about that, and he sent me a book called like Day One. Like, every day is day one. And he's like, I view everything like today is day one. And what do I need to focus on today, and what my life needs to be? How can I live my life to the best ability, being that much more intentional each day to be the best version of myself? And I can't focus on all the other things because I lived a pace that really should not have been sustainable. And I think about, that's an extreme, because that's, you know, that's special operators, but we all kind of fall into that trap, don't we? We
Yeah.
fall into that trap like we're special operators, because within our own pace, Desiree, Dr. Anne-Marie Ristow, and Tiffany and Kylie, you're all special operators of what you do and how you show up in your own way. And so we forget the fact that we're human beings and that we need to be recharged, and we need pause. We need to get into spaces where we can do better for ourselves than better for other people. We forget that. And then we require of everyone around us, hey, I need you to be at this level all the time, without even, like you said, without even saying, what do you need?
Yeah.
Because it's like, man.
Yeah.
Well, rest isn't a reward, right? I always say to clients, rest isn't a reward. It's a strategy for performance.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like, it's not, we have to get out of this mindset of this, you know, I think we over glorify. I've never done it, but certainly the organizations I've worked in previously, they over glorified, or they glorified that overwork, and they called it dedication or commitment. And in reality, it's a direct path to burnout.
Superstar, rock star, you're the best.
That's it. So I think we need to shift the conversation from, you know, fixing individuals that aren't committed or dedicated to restructuring the systems of work, and really looking at what is the future of leadership, and how are we going to help human beings thrive? Because human beings can't thrive if they're in survival mode all the time. We can't psychologically, we can't. It's like being in a war zone. Like Chasen, you were saying, you cannot thrive mentally or physically if you're constantly sitting in that survival mode, because your body will give up before your mind does often, particularly leaders that are very resilient and very high performers. We say this a lot with high performers. They just keep going and going and going. And I always say to my clients that are in this space saying, I'm really unwell. I've got multiple like complex physical health conditions now. And I'm always saying to them, either you make time for your health now, or you'll have to make time for illness later.
Ooh, that is tough. As a person who is going through some of that now, right? Like, stress is a thing. But I also want to acknowledge that most leaders sit in the seat they're in with no training, like no idea how to get to this seat. Like, they're literally thrown a bunch of direct reports and like, go for it. Like, you know, score a touchdown. And we don't give them the tools. And I think this goes to Tiffany's point. We don't give the tools and resources necessary to do those things. If you want a person to lead people, you need to give them the tools and strategies to do that. Most of the time, that is not happening. It is not. I work in recruiting every day, and I'm going to tell you, it does not happen. I'm putting someone in the seat, and they're just expected to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that is not how this should happen. And until we change that, you're going to consistently have this turn of burnout. I have this funny thing, Sarah Whalett, and you don't know her, follower. She was a great burnout transformation person. She worked at Accenture. She now works for academia, but she always says, like, it's fight or flight. Like, people get fight or flight here. So you're either going to fight it as high performers do and crazy, myself, or you're a flight and you like go into depression mode. Like, why are we forcing people to fight or flight?
Yeah.
That's where we're at.
It's so interesting because Chasen was just talking about like the back to work, everyone, you're going back into the office. Well, the toxic work environment multiplies the risk, right? So we're telling people you have to go back into the toxicity, right? And outperform how you were, where, I know everyone doesn't always prefer to work from home, but when you're in a toxic work environment, it's like, wow, it's such a reprieve to not have to be like willingly arriving every day to lead or to do what you need to do when you can manage it, I think, much easier, or at least for myself, I found when you more naturally gave yourself that chance to breathe and those things that you needed. Instead of being reactive, you were able to be proactive because you weren't like on the battlefield, like you just said, Desiree. You're not like in there. You are on the border almost, because you don't have to show up every day into it. You're still showing up for the work and doing the work and hopefully catching those things, because the way that the toxic work environment multiplies your risk factors, you're absolutely right, Kylie. Like, it is, your body will stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I always say to people when they're talking about the work environment, especially people that have, got this return to work order, we've had that to some degree in Australia, not as much as what we're seeing in the US, but people that were in a toxic work environment and then have had that reprieve from either having, 2 days in the office and then 3 days reprieve working from home. A lot of those people have said to me, I would have left, resigned, or gotten much sicker much quicker had I been 5 days in that environment. And I always say to them, just be careful, because you can't heal in the place that hurt you. And so from a psychological viewpoint, but also a physical one, you can't physically and mentally heal in the place that hurt you. And so if you are required to return to the workplace full time and you don't have that reprieve, you might want to start putting things in place as far as your exit strategy, because you will get sick. I did. I got very sick.
I love this from, there's two comments that I really want to call out. This one from G. G, thank you for being here. Sarah, thank you. Nicole, Nick, Jody, and I can't see all the comments, but these are the ones that are showing up here. Don't even get me started on the mandated RTO. Seriously, I wrote a magazine article on this in February of 2022, and I'm still salty. Yeah, I think we all are. And then I want to comment on this because we all believe this, but I think it bears repeating over and over and over and over again. Companies promote people because they are high performers. Being the best salesperson or being the best marketer or being the best producer does not make you the best leader. And especially to Desiree's point, even if you are a pretty good leader and then we throw you out there and give you reports and give you more responsibility and we don't give you tools and training and support, one-on-one support, you're going to fail or you're going to be that person that is just like fight or flight. I'm going to fight through this, and then I'm either going to get another job and leave, or I'm just going to be burned out, and then you're going to terminate me because I'm imploding, and it looks like I'm not doing a great job when really it's you that didn't do a great job.
Yeah.
Or
think
unintentionally harm others, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But when you talk about
And
retention and stuff like that too, and this goes back to Tiffany's point, like when we're trying to hold on to people, how are we holding on to a person by throwing them to the fire? Like, I just don't understand the logic. My mom said to me yesterday, she said, I just want to understand the logic between your gardening. I was like, well, it's kind of awful. There's no real logic to it. But if you apply logic to even people, right, you will figure out that people need support. They need resources. They need to feel support. And if they're a leader of people, they need to feel their people are support. I mean, it's like this trickle down thing, and we're just not doing a great job. And the more and more, because I'm at director level, so I will say this on my own point, that the more we get higher and higher, the more we start to see this, we move away from training. You should already know what you're doing at this point. So we're going to walk away from some of this stuff, which is, listen, I do know what I'm doing, but there are people who get in these seats that just don't know. And how are we supporting? How are we helping them? How are we making sure their family and their dogs and their cats are okay? I feel concerned.
shout out to the pets.
Shout out to my goldfish
We're
because
lighting them
this,
over here. Yeah. I wanna add to that, and this is similar to the point that I was about to make, is that we see it in our work all the time. It's why I think there's this craving for leadership development. We have seen a surge in that over the last probably 3 years, and we've only been in business 5. But I think it is a consistent theme. But also, what people are admitting is we're not having the right conversations at the right time. We're afraid to hurt each other's feelings. We're not giving the right level of feedback to said people that we have placed in these roles, done a disservice, not set up for success. I had a leader the other day who said, I don't feel like I've been set up for success. And I'm like, I would agree. How are we going to work through this? Right? We can't put people, these are not goldfish, right? We can't put them in this little tank and expect to grow them and expect them to perform tricks for us. We are not pets. We are not exhibits. We're humans. And I think that no matter where you work, no matter what sector, what it is, we're all humans, and we deserve the opportunity. If you hire me and I'm here to serve a purpose, and I feel that I want purpose and meaning out of this, and I'm not given that, we're all going to fail. We're all going to fail in that environment because it was never set up for us to win in the first place. But then add pressure, add a lack of systems, a lack of feedback, policies that don't work for us. I'm grateful I have clients who they don't even have to do some of this stuff because they're under the federal or state limits. They don't have to do it, but they're doing it because it's the right thing to do. I want more of that, and we are missing that. I know that this group stands in the gap. We stand in that gap of where we see the inequity and all of the things that need to happen. And some folks will see that and they will turn the other way, right? And that's why we do conversations like this, because they matter. We have to bring purpose and meaning into the workplace. We have to allow people to challenge up. One of the 4 stages of, if you look at Timothy R. Clark's 4 stages of psychological safety, being able to contribute, but also to challenge up, right? To say, I don't know if that's the best idea, or, hey, I have another idea, and not feel like I'm going to be out of a job or reprimanded because I've said that. If the idea is to grow and to continue to make money, we have to allow ideas to thrive through our people.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. To the point that Desiree said, and that we all have reiterated, even if you're fantastic and you're well adjusted in that seat, you still need support. You still need support.
Mhm.
We all have been in that place. I, I, I'm telling you, the last place that I was in corporate America, I thought I had hit the lottery. I have an office on Fifth Avenue in New York City. I've got a little, I'm building up my HR side business. So, and I'm like, you know, things are good. This boy is on fire. I'm doing all the things. We've got brick and mortar. We're doing Amazon. We're selling to Sally's and all this. And I'm like, it's like taking all the things I did in culinary and bringing it all to this others. And I'm thinking like, this doesn't get any better. And then this magical thing happened. As I am at a director level, I'm in charge of all the human resources, and I'm in charge of 2 warehouses, and I'm in charge of 3 brick and mortar stores, and I'm in charge of the home office people in some regards, some of the people there. Now all of a sudden, I'm tasked with doing certain things, but the owner of the company doesn't like those things. So instead of saying, hey, let's have a conversation about this, he just goes back around after he's told me to do something and I do it, and he doesn't like how that's happened, or that person that we've hired after weeks of interviews and we're in the process of onboarding them, and then he just comes in on day 2 of their job and fires them. And every time we had that conversation, he would say, I'm sorry, Chasen. We'd have this long list of thing, and then he would bump up my salary.
Mm.
After a while, you get so filthy with all of that, they're just like, man, I don't feel good about myself anymore. Like, I literally feel terrible about myself. I can't be in this place any longer. I think besides toxic work environments, and there's a lot that we could say about toxic work environments and about people and leaders, but it gets down to, and we've all said it in some shape, form, or fashion, when leaders understand that people are the most important thing, they are the biggest line item on a P&L. So if that's all you care about, if really you're just like, I'm just focused on numbers, I'm looking at the P&L, there's a line item, that's how I see everything. They are the most important piece to your puzzle. So do everything in your power to take care of them, to make sure they have everything that they need, because then your company's going to thrive. And this magical thing is going to happen when your company thrives. They're going to thrive as well. Their families are going to thrive. And then it's going to branch out and have a rippling effect on community. It's a beautiful, magical thing. And all you cared about was the bottom line, but you did the right thing. You did the right thing, and you started paying attention, having one-on-ones, asking the questions, listening, really listening, which means you got to stop talking.
Oh my gosh, so hard for people.
So hard.
So hard.
Don't say that.
Shut up.
Well,
We keep it real here. I was like, did I just say shut up?
I'm not talking to our audience. I'm just saying.
oh Lord, so good, so good, ladies. We're at the place where I want to spend the next 20 minutes or so. Let's talk about solutions. We're great at really burning fire underneath people, but let's talk about solutions. Let's talk about things that we can be doing. And I just mentioned a couple of things that as a leader you could be doing, especially if you're really hungry for money and you're really focused on the bottom line. Then pour into your people, care about them. But let's talk about real actionable things for preventing leadership burnout, addressing it, recognizing it. And I'll tell a story a little bit later on, but addressing it, identifying it, and then solutions. So Desiree, you're in the big screen. So let's start with you.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm going to start with recognizing, because I have a million tips for how to solve all these problems because it's all I talk about. But I think the biggest piece that we're missing is how to recognize someone is going through this, right? We see someone who's like constantly performing, who, they're taking your calls at 2 o'clock in the morning, but by the way, you shouldn't be doing, like, they're answering every email in 10 seconds. Like, there's a level here as a leader that we should be recognizing these kind of, these triggers for burnout. And I mean that in that they're not taking PTO, right? Like I watch PTO like a hawk, because like if you're not taking it, right? Like, what is happening? Why aren't you taking it? I need you to have a day of rest. I need you to have a mental health day. Why have you never been sick? It's weird, right? It's like it's not a human thing to have no moments that don't do that. And it's probably because you feel like you can't. It's not because you don't want to take the time. It's because you feel like something I've done or something that has happened is making you feel like you can't take that time. So looking at PTO, looking at those really big triggers for me is super, super important. I can tell, when I've been in a conversation with an employee and they feel over energized. Well, I feel like that all the time, but not like that. But feel like they're just running on empty and they're not really having good conversations with me or not connecting the dots. I hopefully am listening, but they're not connecting the dots to my listening as well. And so those start to look at triggers. I think we need to do better as leaders in seeing what the trigger point is for us to be like, hey, stop. I need you to go do whatever it is you do that's fun. Go garden. Well, my mom was saying I'm crappy at it, but go fly out of a plane. Go, do dirt biking like Desiree does. Like, do all of those things versus coming in here and talking to me because we are not having a really good conversation anymore. And I feel like that's because either I put too much on you or you feel like you can't say that to me. Transparency, communication, triggers, all the things, right? I'm going to stop talking. I could go on for days.
It's fantastic. Dr. Amber Ristow, I would love for you, because we talked a little bit before as we were getting this all together, talk about how you recognize what's going on for yourself or for other leaders, or what other leaders can do to recognize.
Yeah. So to recognize it, like first I'm a firm believer of put your own oxygen mask on first, right? Like you have to, and then that's modeling also. So that's really important because I don't always follow that. And so like I'm reflecting here as we're all talking. This is like a great therapy session for me. So I don't even remember what you asked me now, Jason, because I'm really thinking about that, like making sure that you know how your body is speaking to you is so important. I've been in a situation where I had a huge health scare, and like I know what catapulted it, what made it blow up. And I did a lot of work to get myself removed from that, right? So really like listening to your body and knowing that no one else can tell you what are your triggers and what your body is telling you, like, except for yourself. So and it doesn't matter if you feel like it just seems like a horrible time, or it seems unrealistic, or isn't going to be received well. At the end of the day, who cares if you are not able to like recognize yourself or bring your best self forward? Like that's time. Go fill your cup. Like everything will be there, and then you're in a better place to decide if that's what you're going to step back into and contribute to, and you see your limits as being that you can keep that honor yourself for that, I think is just really important. Like just making sure that you know yourself, and in knowing yourself that you don't compromise what's on offer. And I just like sitting here thinking like all these great things that happened this week that I am not able to like really take in and celebrate because of the amount of toxicity that just keeps you like going at that unreasonable rate. And so just, I think we have a responsibility to ourselves, and we have a responsibility to be transparent with those that we lead. And
Absolutely.
and in saying, hey guys, you know, we've had 3 long days this week because of the time crunch. We have to do better on not having that time crunch in the future, but we need to take care of ourselves and not just go back into, you have an 8-hour or 9-hour a day contract, so you need to be in the office at 8 and leave at this time. It's no, like model for them and say, you know, go home. Like, don't just go home. And I don't want to see you on email. Yeah, I don't want to see your presence. Like, appreciate everything you do, because in doing so, and by saying, you know, it's not just my boundary, then it's like setting boundaries for a healthier environment to switch the narrative of what people are working in. I think it's just really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Tiffany, jump in here and give us some tips for what you think we should be looking for, either to identify when it's happening to ourselves or other leaders, and what we can do to start to prevent and get around this leadership burnout epidemic.
Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of times our families will call us out, right? Or what I like to say, call forward. Maybe they're calling us forward on, hey, you haven't come to my game. You haven't watched this movie with me. Oh, you seem to be eating your dinner at a different table, or we haven't seen you in a while. There are some telltale signs like that. But also, I love that we're talking about just acknowledging, and not just, but acknowledgement of what our bodies are telling us. Sometimes it'll tell us, hey, you haven't drank that water today. Hey, you haven't moved. That's why your knees are all creaky. How long are you going to sit at this computer without a break? Your eyes will tell you. We have so many. One thing that I notice is sometimes I'll just have this huge sigh and I'm like, ooh, what were we holding on to? Right? Our bodies, and I do breath work.
Yeah.
Our bodies will tell us what we need. I think also, you know, I used to be on the bike, pedaling, exercising, and reading emails. Why was I ever doing that? I don't know. But we have to start our days with things that fill our cup. Because if you start your day with work right away, even if you start work early, fill your cup first, right? I learned that the hard way, to fill what I need. What does Tiffany need to start this day to be whole? I think it was my friend Yvonne who said, you know, she wants people getting the best of her, not the rest of her. And I was like, oh, that really resonated, because if we allow people, whether, you know, from a social emotional perspective, a physical perspective, to just take everything that we have, you can't build from that place. And that is not a healthy place to lead a team from. You have to pour and fill into your cup. My 2 favorite things these days are stillness and spaciousness. I need space. Like, I take up space physically. Like, I will spread out in a room on a table. I will apologize, but I'm taking my space, right? And I did it earlier at the office today. And I was like, am I in your way? Okay, because I do this. But I name it, claim it, own it, right? It's about owning the space. It's about giving yourself the permission to be able to do so. And the flexibility, right? We all work in different environments. I know that my flexibility as an entrepreneur and a business owner looks different than other people's. But when you have your own values and you establish your own boundaries, which I encourage you all to do, and any of us can help you do that if you haven't done that yet for yourself, that exercise is understanding where that line is, finding your no, right? Being able to establish for yourself where that line is. And if it's, I stop work at 5, this is when they pay me till I'm done at 5. Okay. If it helps me to get up and maybe get a jump start on my day to look at that, I'm not telling you to do something that's outside of what helps you, because sometimes it's helpful for me to do things after hours or before people are on. But I think it's so important to understand what is going to work for you, and to give yourself the permission and the flexibility, and to not, I did this on the personal side. This works as well at personally as it does professionally, to say, I excuse myself from that. That, yes, what is it going to take away from me? I don't have the time and capacity. I already feel like you're not going to get the best of me. I'm going to be snappy. I'm going to be grumpy because I've had a long day. I can't give you what you need. And if as a leader, you don't have that and you need a pause, you have to be able to do that. You have to let people take their vacation, right? As we said, without having, bothering them. I had somebody tell me they will give me back my time as they wrote me while I was overseas. I didn't see it till I came back, but I was like, it creates a feeling, right? We have to be able to understand what our bodies and our minds are telling us. When we see themes that keep reoccurring, that's a great telltale sign. And when you feel that resentment building, that is a key in burnout, because cynicism is real. Listen to those things. Do not just ignore them. I'm watching a couple people right now, like, your health is trying to tell you something, and I'm going to keep being annoying because I care for you. Do that for your teams and check in on them because you care.
Love it.
Yeah, absolutely, Tiffany. And we're all guilty at some point of losing sight of that, and we need the reminders. So it's good to have people like us in our own corners, and be that for other people, be that for ourselves, and be that for other people as well. Kylie, I would put you in the hot seat. Same thing. What do you see for yourself? How do you identify when you're reaching that point? And then what would you say for leaders so that they can be aware and have solutions?
The first thing I'd say when it comes to burnout is prevention's better than cure. It's like anything with your health, right? So we always seem to, as human beings, wait until we're at that tipping point to actually do something about our health, whether it be mental or physical health. But to create that meaningful change that we're all talking about, that sustainable change that we want to see when it comes to burnout, or to avoid it altogether, to prevent it, rather than, talk about the things we can do to cure it. I think we need to move from those burn and churn leadership models to really thinking consciously and intentionally about sustainable human-centered leadership and what that looks like, and start teaching and preaching that, especially to the leaders, the emerging leaders coming up. And part of that prevention around burnout comes from really understanding deeply what psychosocial hazards are and how to identify them before they become psychological injuries and abuse in the workplace. And part of that are things like, recognizing for ourselves, but also our teams, and normalizing those conversations with our teams about, admitting fatigue and making it okay for leaders and employees to feel vulnerable and show vulnerability in the workplace. And being leaders that are comfortable sitting in our own vulnerability with our teams, because we all know in this group, and hopefully the people listening, that role modeling from the top, when leaders set those boundaries, it signals that permission to others, to our staff, to do the same, that sometimes we're not okay. And we in Australia, we had Are You OK Day yesterday, where it's a day where you reach out to everyone, friends, family, staff, and you say, how are you doing? It's not tokenistic, it's how are you really going? Because often a lot of us leaders and staff, we wear those masks to work and we pretend that everything's fine, but we don't understand what's happening in everybody's lives personally, and we've all got our own experiences and trauma and just life that's happening in the background. So I think it's really important that as leaders we start role modeling, showing that vulnerability, letting our teams know that it's okay to be vulnerable, and that's part of fostering those workplaces that are really psychologically safe, and investing in that psychological safety to create those environments where people think, I can knock on Kylie's door, or I can just tap on the door because the door's rarely closed, and come in and say, hey, I'm not okay today. I need to talk to someone. And we as leaders have to create those cultures and those workplaces where asking for help isn't seen as a weakness, it's actually seen as a strength. So I think it's super important that we role model that stuff, and that we role model as leaders that we're not perfect. There are no perfect human beings. you know, and that was hard for me when I first became a leader, because I thought I needed to be that hero leader, you know, that knew everything and could give every solution and was always okay. And we're not always okay. So I think that's really critical. But I also think we need to move away from this, you know, resilience training. You know, we hear all the time in leadership development, we need resilience training. And some of the training and leadership development initiatives that I hear about, I think that's going to be a waste of time, because we need, rather than doing things like resilience training, human beings are resilient typically, I think. We need to shift from resilience training and things like that to redesigning work expectations and workplace cultures, and that, you know, focus on psychological safety. And one last thing I'll say, because I could go on forever about this, is really recognizing what depletes us. And all of us, you know, the ladies before me said this, but being really honest with ourselves and having these conversations honestly and openly and genuinely with our teams about what depletes us in our work and what depletes us in our work environment, because we all operate differently. We're all different personalities with different emotional regulation skills, and I think that's something that we also need to talk about, is what depletes us and what are our non, really being very honest about that as well.
That's huge. It's absolutely huge. And it goes into the crazy story that I'll end up with, and then we'll get any final comments that anybody has, and finalize our 1 year anniversary. So this has been absolutely fantastic. 2 weeks ago, roughly 2 weeks ago, you know, we talk about this. I've learned these lessons. You know, at 60, it's not like uncommon for me. I've been working for 45 years in the service industry. I've been through my own addiction battle and homelessness and all the things. I've gone through a lot of different places, but I know myself well enough to know when things are happening, when my body's telling me stuff and all of that. But a couple of weeks ago, I literally was at the place where I was running really hard because people have been encouraging me more and more and more to tell my story. And when, as an introvert that's a little socially awkward, getting in front of people in person, especially, and telling my story is super depleting. So this is playing off what Kylie was saying. It's super depleting. And I was doing these things over and over again and not recharging the batteries. I'm pouring from an empty cup, and I've lost sight of the fact that I'm doing it. And I've been in this place. We've lived in this place for 5 years. There's off-street parking. So on Monday, you have to park on one side of the street. On Tuesday, you have to move your car to the opposite side so they can do street cleaning. Not one $50 ticket, but two $50 tickets to the place where I'm forgetting. And as I'm picking up the second $50 ticket, and I'm going to a place where I'm going to talk in person and relay my story again, my neighbor texted me that I rarely hear from, but I know them and I have a relationship with them, and says, it's not like you to do these things. Like, you've been here 5 years, you never do this. And it's like, it hit me. Like, I gotta pause. Like, I'm picking this, taking $100 that I just threw out the window that I don't have to throw out the window. And I'm looking at this ticket, and I'm looking at that text from her, and I'm on my way to go pour from my empty cup again. And I'm like, I went, I did it, and I cleared the rest of my schedule for that day. And I sat outside in the sun, and I'm just like, man, I'm good. I've got to be more aware before I get to this place. You've done all of this work. You've done all of these things. And I say this not to pat myself on the back, or even to hold my hand up and say, I think you can do the work and still be doing work constantly and still get off the rails and still be at a place that's like, dang, what happened? I didn't even realize I'm here now. And I think that Kylie brings up a really good point, that it's not even just about the breath work and all the other stuff. I do all these things. I journal. I have all of these things in my life, but somehow I still got off track. Somehow the train never got to switch. And so I think that we really have to hold each other accountable too. I love that Tiffany said that for her friends, that we do that for each other, but that we've got to really be intentional, especially today. And not because it's Suicide Awareness Month, or not because the world is heavy, not because of the things that have happened and the violence that's in the world, but because we care about humanity. The community is the most important thing, that we are important and we need each other. And that we have conversations like this on a quarterly basis to remind each other, but we need to have conversations on a daily basis to look after people and be aware of the fact that we are human and we are going to get off track at some point, and we need that accountability. We need the people around us. We need community to hold us accountable, so that we can keep ourselves okay, so that we can continue to pour out into other people. So I'd love final comments, and then we'll end this up. Thank you, everybody, for being in the audience. Thank you for all the fantastic comments and for everybody showing up. But I'll just start. I'll start with Desiree, and I'll just go around. But any final comments that you might have?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that humans are leading humans, right? So I feel like we forget that sometimes. There are humans underneath you. Please do that. Please have empathy. Empathy is an actual strategy to your leadership. Please do that. Please make sure that people feel psychologically safe. I'm sure Kylie's going to talk about that as well. But do all of the things. You are leading another human, not a balance sheet or a P&L.
Mm-hmm.
End of story. Thank you so much for joining my TED Talk.
Dr. Ristow,
I was in my whole TED Talk, by the way. Just saying.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I want to keep listening to that talk. I'm like, hey, that actually really helps. I had this situation that happened earlier in the week that a young girl, I was walking onto campus. I'm working in higher ed right now. And I was walking out of campus, and it was a rainy day, but there's an overhang. And she was literally curled up in a ball on the sidewalk, sleeping, using her backpack as a pillow and holding onto her other bag with a jacket. And it was not a health thing. She was that exhausted. And it just really struck me. I went in and got her assistance, and it stayed with me all week, because we don't know what's happening for other people, and what they're bringing to work every day, and what is someone else's level for burnout versus someone. It's not up for us to decide. It's up for us to put the systems in play to really support people to not get to that point of exhaustion, like Kylie said, right? Not to offer a place now for her to go, or it's to, what are we doing that's the level of exhaustion that she's feeling from what's on her plate. And we don't get to decide what's on everyone's plate. Our job as leaders is to always try to be attentive to that. And the best way we can do that is to be attentive to ourselves and make sure that we're not reaching that burnout level as well.
So good. So darn good.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Tiffany, you're up.
I think I would say, not to be afraid to ask for help, but also to be the place that people feel safe asking for help. And the number of times that has been a strength and something I'm so proud of this week, that unexpectedly someone just walks in and cries with me, not with me, but in my space, right? And I'm able to hold that space, but because they weren't afraid to ask for that, and because I was a safe enough place to ask for that, this is where that vulnerability and empathy we're talking about. Show up in the way that you want people to show up for you. And I don't see enough people asking for help. And a lot of times it's because that environment is not set up for it. So I guess that's what I would call forward and leave people with.
Love that. Kylie, take us out.
A couple of pointers. Leadership burnout, people. It's not about weak leaders, it's about unsustainable systems. So just remember that when we're blaming ourselves, we can only control what we can control as leaders. And also remember that as leaders, we're not just decision makers and all the other things that we have on our plate. We're also carrying that invisible weight of everyone else's well-being. All right. And that's where some of that vicarious trauma stuff starts to creep in, particularly in the world that we're living in at the moment. We're hearing all the experiences of other people, and we're leading with empathy, a lot of us. And so people are telling us their stories, and they are, feeling vulnerable and able to sit and cry with us. But just think about how you're looking after your own well-being, because if you're taking all that on, where is it going? It's being absorbed into your body, right? It's not just you're carrying that home and then you're carrying it into your environment at home, you're carrying it into the environment you share with your family, perhaps. So that's something that I want leaders to really think about, is their own well-being when they are leading with empathy and thinking about the risk of vicarious trauma. And on that, rest is, I said it before, but I'm going to say it again, rest is not a reward, it's a strategy performance. And if I didn't talk about psychological safety, you'd all go, what's wrong with her? So I will say that psychological safety has to start from the top. We as leaders are responsible for it. We have to role model it. We have to lead by example. But if we as leaders, again, if we can't say no and establish those boundaries and those non-negotiables, and if we can't say, I need help, then no one else will. So I know it's a lot of responsibility on leaders, but we set the tone. And if we want thriving organisations and healthy staff, then we must thrive as well.
Goodness gracious, man! I would throw my shoe, but no one would see it. Like, daggum. Holy
I would pay to
mackerel.
see that. I would.
Me too. I'm here for it.
Throw my right out, man. Oh goodness. You ladies never, ever, ever disappoint. I got to tell you, it's such an honor to be friends with all of you, to be here in this space with you, to share this space. I'm just so honored to know all of you. And I thank you all for your perspective. Tiffany Castagno, Desiree Goldey, Kylie van Luyn, Dr. Anne-Marie Ristow, you have been on Leading from the Front birthday edition, the Leadership Burnout episode. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all the comments. Continue the conversation, and we will catch you next quarter. But thank you for being here this evening. Take care.